What's it like living near a wine region so good it's called epic? Well, that's where I live. I live near the epic wine region. And is it really all that good? Well, we're going to be talking about that and so much more on this episode of The Average Wine Enthusiast. Hi there, everybody. My name is Mike LaPlante, and I'm the Average Wine Enthusiast. Well, as I'm recording this on March the 24th, 2020, we are living through some unprecedented times. Nothing like this has ever happened in my 57 years of existence on this planet, where we've all pulled together and tried to basically save a large portion of humanity by changing the way we live, staying home, closing businesses, and doing what we have to do to make sure that we don't get our loved ones sick. I'm certain that we're going to get through this and we're going to come out on the other side with a lot more knowledge of what to do in the future when something that affects the whole planet is going to happen again. And I'm sure it will happen again sometime while humans still exist. We're being tested, that's for sure. Like I said, businesses are being closed and all but the most essential businesses are staying open. Pharmacies, gas stations, grocery stores, and the LCBO. Yay! The government of Ontario said the folks need to drink alcohol. It's essential for them to get through these trying times. So sure enough, you can still go out and get yourself a nice bottle of wine to get yourself through these times, which is good, I guess. I like that idea that folks can still be able to pick up some liquor. And the best part is when you go for a drive somewhere, which it's fine to go for a drive, it's pretty deserted out there. So if you're driving, odds are you're not drinking because you're not supposed to do that, even in the best of times. But it's nice that you can go get some wine, come home with it, and enjoy it, because that's what everybody's doing, staying home and enjoying their loved ones and maybe even a bottle of wine. Like I said in the open, on this episode, I want to talk about the wine region that is closest to me. I've referred to it in the past year of shows here and there, and I never really talked very highly of it. I've talked highly of Argentinian Malbec and Spanish Rioja, but I've never talked highly of the wine that is basically right in my backyard. As most of you know, I live in the city of Windsor, which is in the province of Ontario, and Windsor is in the county of Essex. The province is split up into various counties like it is in most locations here in North America. And this county is basically a peninsula that exists within the Great Lake ecosystem. The Great Lakes, of course, are the largest source of fresh water in the world, I believe. And the peninsula that I speak of, Essex County, is bordering on Lake St. Clair to the north, which isn't really a Great Lake, and Lake Erie, which is to the south, which is the shallowest lake, and it might even be the smallest now that I think about it, in the whole system. So on that north shore of Lake Erie exists some conditions for growing grapes. Back in the day, in the 1800s, there were some folks that resided on Pelee Island, which is just south of Point Pelee, which is a national park at present time. And to the south of that is Pelee Island. And some gentlemen there opened up vineyards, and for a pretty decent amount of time, they grew, I want to say it was 1,700 acres of grapes. So making wine around here, this place is no stranger to wine production. However, along came Prohibition. Along came Prohibition. I don't know what made me think of that, but that, of course, led to the demise of vineyards, obviously, because you're not allowed to drink alcohol. You're not allowed to make wine. So what did they do? They started growing tobacco, of all things, from one thing to the next, eh? And that lasted for a pretty good chunk of time. After Prohibition was done, they started growing grapes again. But it wasn't until the late 60s and into the 1970s that it was taken seriously again. I'm going to say maybe in the late 70s, Carlo Negri was a winemaker, I believe. He's from Italy. And he started making wine down there for a company called Colio. I'm not sure if he was an owner of it or what the deal is, what the setup was, but Colio was one of the earliest modern wineries here in Essex County. And then there was Pelee Island Winery. Of course, I believe they just bought the land from whoever owned the land there on Pelee Island. And they also have some vineyards on the south side here on the mainland as well. So, like I said, this area it's conducive to growing grapes. It's an agricultural area for sure. It's, of course, the most southern part of Canada. The mainland Canada is right here, and it's south facing, so the sun goes in front of all this land that's on the shore there, and it creates some pretty decent conditions. Of course, you need some winds that come off of the lake. However, I believe that the location is good in terms of the line of latitude and the fact it's close to water, exposure to sun. It's the same line of latitude as Northern California, in fact, and we know that that area can grow some pretty decent grapes for winemaking, for sure. But there is more to it than that. This whole area is sandy, silty clay. That's the type of dirt that we have to grow here in the northern part and in the interior of the county. It's mostly clay, and of course, along the edges we have sand. Is that a good medium for growing grapes? I don't think it is. If you look at places like California and France, they grow their grapes in rocks, places that don't hold any water at all. The water just goes right through the roots and passes through. Makes for a very hardy grape. Hardy grapes make for good wine. So sand obviously holds water. It's moist all the time, and it's tough, especially for growing grapes that are make popular wines, your Merlots, your Cabernet Sauvignons. And that's probably why my favorite winery in Essex County is one that isn't on the actual shore. It's more inland, and they do grow their grapes in clay, which is another tough medium for growing anything, really. But we do grow our share of tomatoes, cucumbers, and corn and wheat and soybeans. That's a lot of the things that we grow inland as opposed to along the coast where all the grapes are at. So that's a little bit of the history, a little bit of the typography that they have to work with down there. And the grapes that they grow there, well, they're changing. I think they're getting a little smarter. They realize that there's certain grapes that do better in that area, in that type of medium. And also, I believe that a lot of the wineries down there are picking up what I talked about in the last episode, expertise. They're getting decent winemakers in there, telling them, you got to plant whatever, Pinots or Cabernet Francs or Rieslings. You got to work with a grape that's going to grow decently in these conditions. And I think that's what they're doing. And some of them are making okay wine. There's Sprucewood, which is a winery down there, and they just recently got a gold medal in the Canadian wine. There was a competition this past summer. They won a gold medal for their Riesling, and it is a very good dry Riesling that I enjoy on a regular basis. It's one of those wines that I can say, that's good for local wine. Like I say, one of my favorite wineries is Musedri is the name of the winery, and they are, like I say, more inland, and they grow their grapes in the same location that they grow corn, and it's clay that when it don't rain during the summer months, it's tough on these grapes, and they do end up losing a good percentage of the vines that they have planted just due to the weather. They don't want too much rain. They definitely want lots of sun, but oftentimes the vines don't last. But it makes for some very good wine as well. Recently, like I said, I'm recording this on March 24th, and on March 8th, couple weekends ago, the Epic Wineries, Epic, by the way, is Essex, Pelee Island Coast. That's the name of the wine region that is here. And some of the wineries that belong to the Epic wine region, I suspect, like all things, money is involved here. There is wineries down there that I don't really think pay this organization to belong to the organization, just because they're just small mom and pop operations, or it's politics, who knows. But the area in general is known as the Epic wine region. And they had an event on March 7th and 8th. It was a Saturday and a Sunday. And what they did is they had participating wineries. There was 11 of them. And I want to say there's maybe 20 wineries in total. I should know that number, but I don't. It's around 20 wineries that are on the north coast of Lake Erie down there. And 11 of them participated in this event that they've had apparently for the last couple of years. I've never heard of it. It's called March Madness. And what they do is they create a macaroni and cheese dish that they end up pairing with one or two of their wines. And the results was fun. It was a great day. For one thing, the weather was pretty decent for March 8th. It can be chilly, snowy, crappy in southern Canada on March 8th. No problem. We can get a snowstorm tomorrow as far as that goes. And so it was sunny. It was the weekend, and people were out. It was a sold-out event. You know, buses take people everywhere, and limos and designated drivers. So, like I said, 11 of these wineries that belong to the Epic wine region made their version of macaroni and cheese. And you paid, I want to say it was $45, and you got to go to all 11 wineries if you want to get a 2-ounce tasting and a serving of macaroni and cheese. It was, I think it was a good deal. Like, you're not going to be hungry by the time you're done, depending on how many wineries that you end up going to. My wife and I planned on going to 6 of these wineries, mostly just based on their geographic location compared to where we are. And we've done our fair share of traveling through wineries, and we know what we can do in a day. But we've never been through something quite like this as far as going from one winery to the next in this area. And so we planned on going to 6, and we mapped out a route where we were going to go, just based, like I say, on the geographic location. So we had a very specific route that we were going to take to hit each one of these wineries. We ended up going to 8 of them altogether because we met up with some people, because obviously you're going to see that some of the same people at one winery as you are going to see at the other winery. Like I said, we went to 8 of them. And I was just going to go through the wineries that we stopped at and give you an idea of what we experienced on this fun event on the south side of Essex County and on the north coast of Lake Erie. So the first place we went to was Vivace, which was owned by the D'Angelo guys, who now have a winery out in British Columbia in Naramata. So I can't wait to go back out to visit my brother and check out the D'Angelo wines and see what they're up to there, because I know their wines here were very meh. I don't know if it's they just didn't know what to do with the wines, with the grapes they were getting, because I'm not sure where they sourced their grapes from. A lot of the grapes that are made here at some of the wineries are sourced from Niagara, either for blending purposes or for, just to have a Merlot in your portfolio, or a very specific varietal in your portfolio. In their portfolio, they will go get some grapes from Niagara and make wine with that. So like I said, we stopped at Vivace, and that was fun. We had tried to go there earlier this year, in fact, but they were closed. So this is a small mom and pop operation, which I really like these kind of places. And it had a nice, cozy tasting room, and they had set it up so that folks could easily come in, try the wine, or pick the wine that you wanted, because they give folks a pretty decent choice of which wine you wanted to try or drink with your macaroni and cheese. So the mac and cheese they had was spicy bacon. So they had a mac and cheese dish, and then the guy added spicy bacon to it. So you mix it all up. And they also had a spicy slaw as well, like a little coleslaw as well, that they served with it. And we had the Old Barn 2012. So this is a blend of some kind that they make there. And it's 8-year-old wine, like wow, or whatever, 7.5 years old. And it went well with the spicy mac and cheese, cut through easily. So we ended up buying a bottle of that. So that was one of the bottles that we did end up bringing home, was the Vivace Old Barn. Next, we went to my favorite winery here in Essex County. It's Musedri, and the Musedri family there. It's an older man who does most of the work there. It seems like you see him in the fields. He's pruning, and he's tending, and he's doing everything around there. On Saturdays and Sundays, they tend to have their wood-fired pizza oven open outside, and they have a little pavilion. It's nice. They got goats running outside, and he's out there, cleaning up plates and everything. So this guy does everything, and he's got to be in his 70s for sure. And on this particular day, the mother was with her daughter. The daughter pretty much runs the place. I think her name's Michelle. And she is an officer, I believe, also in the Ontario Wine Society, the Windsor Essex chapter of that. So she's heavily involved in the local wine scene, Michelle is. And fortunately, they make some really good wine as well. So what were they serving? They were serving Dorito mac and cheese, which was pretty interesting. Fun dish, I guess you'd say. And they served that with their Sauvignon Blanc. They were also offering Merlot to some folks who didn't want to drink white wine, which I suspect, the majority of folks are wanting to drink red wine. We know that just because that's what the demographics, that's what the data tells us. Most folks drink red wine, 65 to 35% for each one of those. So a lot of the wineries that we went to were serving their white wine as the main wine that they wanted to pair up with their mac and cheese, but they also were offering a red wine as well if you didn't want to drink their white wine. So Musedri Dorito mac and cheese with their Sauvignon Blanc, which was it was delicious. Everything about that was really good, great experience, and fun times at Musedri. Then we went over to Cooper's Hawk, which is a newer winery, a very modern setup. Now, these are the kind of wineries that I'm not so into. They just don't have the same feel. They got a modern banquet hall type setting where it's set up so that events can take place at the winery. They also had a tasting room, a big bar area. But it just isn't as cozy. So Cooper's Hawk kind of gives that vibe. I don't know what that is, but I'm just not a big fan of that. But Cooper's Hawk, they served probably my favorite mac and cheese. That was, oh no, maybe not. It was the sushi. They made the mac and cheese with sushi, so they probably rolled up the mac and cheese in something, and then they breaded it, and they deep fried it. They cut it, and then they put some type of onion for sure, and some other spices on there, and it was delicious. At Cooper's Hawk, they have two versions of a wine they called Talon. Get it? Hawk, Talon. Interestingly enough, the night before, my wife and I went out to go see some bands, and the bar had Talon. That's what they were serving, the red Talon. And it wasn't too bad. I have to admit, when you go out to a bar to go see live entertainment, it's tough getting a decent glass of wine. But that's for another show. So that's what Cooper's Hawk was doing, serving their Talon, their red and their white, with their sushi mac and cheese. Then over at Oxley, which is where this bottle of wine comes from, this is their Riesling, which was pretty decent. This is what they were serving with their Montreal smoked meat. So they basically had their version of mac and cheese, which, it could be a million ways you can make that. And then they had a slab of Montreal smoked meat on top. They garnished it with a little something or other, and they were serving their Riesling with that. And again, like I said, they had all these wines all ready poured, and then you could see there was just one little bottle of red on the side if you didn't want the white wine. But that was also very good. Oxley's a really nice wine. We've seen a lot of bands there. I jammed with a group out there they got a nice patio, and there's a fireplace out there. It's a nice place for sure. And they got a really good kitchen too. So they pump out some decent food, and their wine is, I don't know. I'm not going to say anything bad about it because I'm pumping up the Epic wine region right now. And their Riesling went very well with their mac and cheese. And I'm just getting turned on to dry Riesling as of late. So I ended up buying a bottle of that as well. Then it was off to North 42. So North 42 and Crew, which is right next door, Colchester Ridge Estate Winery, but it's called Crew. But that's what it used to be called. And there's two brothers that own those two wineries, and they are literally right next to each other. And they are both new facilities as well. They have that homogenistic sort of modernness to them. Their wines were, for the most part, they were forgettable. I don't remember what we drank there. It was, So North 42, what were they serving as far as the mac and cheese was jalapeno. So it was hot, and it had it wasn't too hot, but it had a very, lots of jalapeno flavor, which I am a fan of, especially when it's paired with something cheesy. You have the yin and the yang there. So that was pretty good, but the wine, like I said, was forgettable. Don't remember. Then we went off to Sprucewood, but we must have went to Crew first. For some reason, and theirs was almost identical. So they had a jalapeno mac and cheese as well, but theirs was deep fried. It was like a little cube. You know how you have mac and cheese deep fried balls? Well, theirs was more like a rectangle box. And it was also jalapeno as well. And again, the wine, forgettable, unfortunately. Then we went to Colio, which is, like I said, that was one of the first wineries here in the Epic wine region. And we weren't planning on going there, but we had met up with some folks at North 42 who said you have to go to Colio because they're serving mac and cheese with duck. Well, yeah, I do got to go there. that really enticed me to go there. And so we ended up going there. The mac and cheese was very good. They were serving their Chardonnay with that, and that was too young. It just tasted, there was no body. There was, I remember it, but it wasn't great. It didn't have I like a lot of oak on my Chardonnay. Not a lot, but I like to taste the oak in the Chardonnay. I want to say this was oaked, but not for long enough, I guess. Colio is a winery that makes a line of wines called Girls' Night Out. So they have, pink and rosé and red and white, and it's just, they're all blends and they're all called Girls' Night Out. So I'm not a big fan of that kind of wine where they just, it's more of a marketing thing. Obviously, with a name like Girls' Night Out, it's the same as Menage a Trois, or there's another one that has just a ridiculous name for a bottle of wine. You can tell it's geared towards women, and that's all I'm going to say. Then where did we go after? No, that was the last place we went to. So that was the 8 places we went to, right? Vivace, Musedri, Cooper's Hawk, Oxley, North 42, Sprucewood, Colio, and Crew. So at the end of that, we were not necessarily full, but we weren't hungry when we left there. And my wife was kind enough to drive the both of us. And so that was very nice of her. And I was able to enjoy many of her tastings and all of my tastings as well. And it really put the Epic wine region in a different light for me, because a lot of times I go down there, we go drinking the wine there either because someone's playing at one of the wineries, or there's an event or Christmas party or something. So that is a destination for all these events to happen. And oftentimes I'm not digging the wine that I'm drinking. Oftentimes I'll drive because I know I'm not going to drink too much of that wine. But that was a fun day. And if you live in the area, they're going to be doing this again next year. And hopefully something that's going on right now isn't happening then. And I would highly suggest you check into going to the March Madness put on by the Epic Wine Region. And I believe you can find the Epic Wine Region online at epicwineries.ca. It might be .com, but I think it's .ca. So I guess that's going to do it for this episode. I want you to stay safe out there first and foremost. But if you're stuck at home, no, you definitely should be stuck at home if you're listening to this shortly after I record this. And you know of other folks who are stuck at home, and they should be too, and they dig wine, please turn them on to this show. I'd like to thank the Big Organ Trio for letting me use their music on this show as well. If you have any comments, leave them down below. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Again, my name is Mike LaPlante, and I'm the Average Wine Enthusiast. Salute!